All right, welcome in. What's Right with Nick Wright, episode 287. Today, you are not going to be able to see us. Today is an audio-only show due to some technical difficulties. So because of that, we'll also do the show a little bit differently. Sometimes we produce it up, kind of like it's a TV show with some elements and stuff. Since today we don't have the visual elements for it, we're going to do it the way we used to do our gambling shows on Thursdays or Fridays, where Damonza and I will go through every game on the slate and then eventually get to the actual 5 picks we're making. Damonza will do his teaser. So we'll do it that way. Also, I guess this is kind of weird because if you're already listening to this, you're probably already subscribed on audio, but that means you're our most dedicated audio listener. So like, rate, subscribe, review, iTunes, Spotify, all that stuff. And if you're like, oh man, I always listen this way, you can also subscribe to the YouTube page, which typically is where we go live for these things. Damonza, how are you?
I'm pretty good, Pops. How are we doing today?
I'm doing well. It is one of the most important Thursday night football games of the year tonight. That's the first one we'll start with. Denver at the Chargers. The Chargers laying 2.5. So here's the weird spot for this game before I give any analysis of it. The Bengals have been left for dead. However, they're not. For the there's there's all these different scenarios they need. And I'm not saying Cincinnati's going to be able to execute the following scenarios, but it is quite simple what Cincinnati needs to make the playoffs. They need to win their remaining games. And why am I talking about Cincinnati here? Because they need to win their remaining games, and they need the loser of tonight's game to lose its remaining games. And so they need to win out, and whoever loses tonight, they need them to lose out, which is why, from a playoff picture standpoint, the team with 8 wins in this game is actually in far better shape than the team with 9 wins. So let me explain that. The Chargers come in 8-6, the Broncos come in 9-5. But the Chargers after tonight, and if the Chargers win tonight, they're locked in. The Chargers after tonight have the Patriots and the Raiders. So even if the Chargers lose tonight, if they can just win one of those games, they're going to be fine. Denver, on the other hand, after tonight, is at Cincinnati and then has the Chiefs in Week 18 in a game the Chiefs may or may not need. And so the loser of tonight is up against it. Oddly, the loser of tonight is more up against it if the 9-win Denver team loses than if the 8-win Charger team loses. This is not one of my picks, but I do like the Chargers in this spot because I think these are two of the best defenses. And while Denver's offense has been humming, statistically speaking, I watched them this past weekend against the Colts in what was a massively important game for them in their playoff chances. And they tried desperately to give that game to the Colts, and the Colts simply wouldn't take it. So again, not one of the picks, but my lean tonight would be that the Chargers get the win. And I'm here to tell you, if that happens, it is on the board that Denver misses the playoffs entirely. Let me ask you this, Damonza. Of these two teams, let's say Baltimore, and we'll get to them later, ends up winning the AFC North, and Baltimore gets the 3 seed. They beat Pittsburgh this weekend. They end up winning the AFC North. They get the 3 seed. Which of these two teams would you rather your Ravens play in round one? Because one of them's almost assuredly going to be the 6th seed. So Denver or the Chargers?
I'd have to lean Denver. I'd rather play Denver. Or honestly, you know what? I'm sorry. Wrong. I'd rather play the Chargers. I've seen some Charger meltdowns. The Broncos. It's a tough one for me just because obviously a rookie quarterback, but the Sean Payton situation, I think they've got something going on over there. But I've seen some bad stuff. The
defense has been awesome. So here, totally fair. You were sitting with me when they had the meltdown against the Jags. Yeah. Here's what I do want to say about the Chargers and the overarching story of the Chargers and Justin Herbert. So Herbert is going to finish his 5th year of his career with basically all of the records for quarterbacks through 5 seasons. Yards, touchdowns. I think he's going to have the most of any quarterback in either of those categories. He also this year, it's going to be another year he doesn't make the Pro Bowl. It's potentially another year they don't win double-digit games. And it is going to be an odd spot if 5 years into his career, Justin Herbert has one double-digit win season, 10-7, one playoff appearance, one Pro Bowl appearance, 0 playoff victories, and 0 A-level seasons that aren't graded on the rookie curve. I know the talent is there, and I'm not a lot of those seasons previously that went awry, I'm not laying totally at his feet. But 5 years in, you would have liked to see more improvement from Justin Herbert. His passer rating, and that's not everything, but his passer rating by year, 98, 97, 93, 93, 97. His yards per game have plummeted this season, but that's more a stylistic thing. His completion percentage has hovered right around 65, 66% his whole career. His yards per attempt have been right in the low 7s every year throughout his career. He just seems so much like the same player he was as a rookie. And the reason we loved him as a rookie was because, man, he's already this good. Think of how good he's going to get. And we didn't quite, to me, we haven't seen that leap. All right. Next game is Texans-Chiefs. And that's not one of my official 5 picks, Damonza. But it is because I made what I think is one of the sharpest bets anyone has made in the NFL all year. So, and I have the text history to show it, to prove it. I'm not going to, we're not on camera right now, so I can't post it anyway. Monday afternoon at work. Was it Monday or Tuesday? No, it was Tuesday. Tuesday at work. I said to Wilds and Greg, I was like, the Chiefs are going to practice today. The practice report's going to come out. Mahomes is going to have practiced in some capacity, and this line is going to flip. And I texted my gambling kind of group chat, and I texted my bookie, you're like, why do you need a bookie? Gambling's legal. Well, sometimes you're trying to get stuff in last minute, or sometimes you're out of state. I texted all of them, and I was like, hey, I'm not going to try to, I don't have inside information here, but I'm telling you guys right now, I believe Patrick Mahomes is playing in this football game. And the Chiefs at that moment were plus 2 points and plus 110 on the money line. And around 2 p.m. Tuesday, I fired a nice 3-unit bet on the Chiefs money line at plus 110. It now sits at minus 170. And the Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites based purely off the belief and the indication that Mahomes is going to play. Which have you seen come across your timeline these lunatic fans of other teams that are now claiming Mahomes fakes these injuries.
Yeah, I have seen it just to make the dub that much more spicy, or the pathway, whatever you want to call it. But I'm also super surprised that you're so like, get Mahomes out there, he's gonna play, and as opposed to like, him taking a step back for a game.
Let me be clear. If it were up to me, he would not play. Okay. I think Carson Wentz can be. The Texans to me are not a great team, and I think that their offensive line problems with Chris Jones and now Charles Omenihu back healthy and George Karlaftis, I think the Chiefs can get after CJ Stroud in a very real way and cause real problems. So it's not about what I want to have happen. It's about what I think is going to happen. Now, the Mahomes injury stuff, I do have to say, it adds to my list of, man, I worry about the literacy, literally and figuratively, of society when there are conspiracy theories about injuries that we saw take place. People are like, the only other time Mahomes suffered a significant ankle injury, we saw it happen in the playoff game. We saw him barely be able to walk. We saw afterwards him fighting not to get an x-ray, the whole thing. We saw how he looked. We saw it. When the Jags player did the knee drop tackle. And on Sunday, we saw it. You saw his legs get bent back, him get crushed, get high-load. We saw it happen. So it's not like a situation where it's like, report out of Kansas City, Mahomes got dinged in practice and they're worried he's not going to be able to play. Like, that isn't what's happening here. So I'm legitimately surprised that this narrative exists, but maybe I shouldn't be. So with all that said, they're not one of my picks, Damonza, because the Chiefs don't cover field goal spreads. And listen, I do think they're going to win, but on general gambling principle, if you could have gotten the Chiefs getting 2.5, betting them now laying 3.5 is insane. We're going to skip Pittsburgh, Baltimore, because that's going to be one of the picks. Browns, Bengals is the next one. And Bengals now find themselves in this very weird spot. They're 7.5-point favorites. Let's just assume, okay, for the sake of argument, that they win this week. They could, Damonza, be facing in back-to-back weeks teams with nothing to play for. Which, here's the spot they could be in. If the Broncos win tonight, the Broncos lock up a wild card spot tonight. And they play the Broncos next week. They play the Steelers in Week 18, which very well could be at that point locked into the 3 seed. Can't go higher, can't go lower. And how that will play out. Now, as I talked about earlier, if the Broncos lose tonight, then Bengals-Broncos damn near becomes a playoff game. It is a playoff game for Cincinnati, and it becomes maybe one for Denver. Not quite, because Denver would have another chance the following week, but a tricky spot. I don't love the way Cincinnati's played, but Cleveland going to DTR, who they have this odd fascination with Dorian Thompson-Robinson over Jameis, tells me Cleveland's not trying to win. And it's not that Jameis has played great, but he's clearly better than DTR. So I wouldn't lay the 7.5, but I would be shocked if Cincinnati loses this game. Like, truly shocked. Cardinals, Panthers, and Eagles, Commanders are both picks of mine, so we're going to wait on those. Giants, Falcons is the next one. Have you seen the line for Giants, Falcons?
It's -9.5 for the Falcons. I assume you're saying that's crazy with them putting Penix in.
It's just such an indictment on the Giants.
Yeah, 1,000%.
I mean, the Falcons have not looked good. The Falcons are starting it's a rookie's first start ever, and they are damn near double-digit favorites. Like, that is a truly baffling one to me. Not baffling, but baffling's the wrong word. It's just such a stinging indictment on the Giants team as a whole that you're playing a team that was so underwhelming in last week's game that they benched their quarterback in a win. They're going to eat the contract, and you're getting nearly 10 points. You're getting more than 2 scores.
Same team that didn't cover a 14-point spread last week, too.
Oh, yeah, the Giants, absolutely. Titans, Colts. The Titans seemed like they're done with the Will Levis experience, and the Colts might be approaching being done with the Anthony Richardson experience. I don't know that the Colts can fully recover from the type of loss they had this past week. Just as bad as it gets, where you're about to go up 13 points. Jonathan Taylor drops the ball before the end zone. Then you run that stupid double pass. Nick Benito returns it. And, you went from being a coin flip to make the playoffs to being on life support to make the playoffs. Then a really interesting one, Damonza. Lions-Bears, with the Bears getting 6.5. Here's why it's an interesting one. The Bears' offense, particularly in the first half of games, has been just horrific. Just as, and Caleb's been bad early. And that further leads to credence to my theory that Caleb is just being way too cautious. How many interceptions do you think he has on this 8-game losing streak?
It's none, right? I think it's 0.
Zero. Now he has a couple strip sacks, but 0 intercept. They've lost 8 in a row. He's thrown no picks. 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions on the year, which sounds really good. But he is just refusing to take chances with the ball down the field, which is hurting them. And it's also why in the first half, they've been able to do nothing. But then in the second half, they're trailing. There's a deficit, and he's willing to let it rip a little bit more. Here's why I say this is an interesting one. The Packers' offense is really good. The Bills' offense is great. So the Lions allowing 79 points the last 2 weeks to those two teams, yeah, it's concerning, but it's like, well, those are some of the better offenses in football. If the Lions' defense, who I don't care what Dan Campbell tries to say publicly, the Lions' he's clearly has no faith in them, as evidenced by the onside kick, the 4th down call at the end of the previous game. If the Lions' defense lets the Bears' offense look, just functional, the Lions are cooked. And this is almost unfair. It's a cruelty of the NFL, but sometimes there's a year where a championship level team has so many injuries concentrated on one side of the ball, they're just done. To this day, if you ask me, what's the best Chiefs team ever? My answer is the 2020 Chiefs. They didn't win the Super Bowl. In fact, they got blown out in the Super Bowl. Why? Because they had cluster injuries on their offensive line, and they all of a sudden had replacement offensive linemen in the Super Bowl, and they couldn't overcome it. And I worry that something similar has happened with Detroit. So I'm not so concerned. I'm not concerned at all, even with the David Montgomery injury, which sucks for them, about the Lions offense. But that Lions defense, that's something to watch this weekend, pending, how they are able to look against Caleb and the Bears. All right, Rams-Jets is going to be one of my picks this week, so we'll get to that in a minute. Vikings-Seahawks is a really fun one, where the Seahawks are getting 3 points at home. Seattle, after a really rough Geno game and getting blown out by the Packers after having a nice 4-game winning streak, finds themselves really on the ropes. Now, it is a weird spot because their big game, obviously, is the Rams in Week 18, but they have to, at the very least, win one of their next two in order for that game to be a big game. The Vikings quietly just hanging out with a 12-2 record, 1 seed and division still available to them, controlling their own destiny, but a brutal final stretch of in Seattle, home for the Packers, then at the Lions. They win out, they're the 1 seed, but those are also all incredibly losable games. I'm really curious what Brian Flores and that defense does against Geno, coming off one of Geno's worst games of the year. I probably lean Minnesota in this spot. Patriots-Bills going to be one of the picks. And then we get to some ugly games. Niners-Dolphins, which should have been, sounded like it was going to be a marquee game at the beginning of the year. And everybody knows I'm interested in how Purdy looks. The Tua, I think the jury is out on Tua. The jury is in, on Tua. When things aren't perfect, he's going to look in over his skis. Some Dolphins fans are still in denial. Some have come around. The Purdy thing that I find interesting is he actually has been able to do okay with different receivers. Like Ayuk goes out, Juwan Jennings plays well, Debo's not the same guy, whatever. But when Trent Williams hasn't been there, he just has been a totally different player. Shanahan opened the possibility this week that Trent Williams doesn't play again this season. And then we remind you, Trent Williams this summer, before next year, turns 37 years old. And the Niners obviously have a very interesting offseason ahead. Kirk Cousins' availability, Sam Darnold's availability, the report that Purdy wants top of market money, all of that is going to make crazy. John Lynch. What's crazy, Damonza?
What do you want, like 50, 55 million or something like that?
Well, I think he wants, I think it's closer to 60, buddy. 60. He's next up.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing on quarterback money that I want to talk about for a second, that I think gets lost in the conversation a bit. It does not really matter if you pay the guy 50 or if you pay him 60. I mean, it does in that's $10 million a year you can spend on another player, but that's not what makes it good or bad. There isn't a quarterback in football that if he was making $50 million a year you feel good about, but at $60 million a year you're like, what did we do? Is he the guy? Is he not the guy? If he's the guy, then the price is the price. And $60 million or $55 million or $52 million is not the distinction. If he's not the guy, then you're not going to feel good at $45 million. Forget 50, $45 million. If he's not the guy, you're not going to feel good about
20.
It. Well, yeah, of course.
He's making like $900,000 a year right now. I'd take 20, dude. You need those guys around you.
He's not going to take 20. That's not so. The Niners could play real hardball with him, with the leverage of you haven't made any money, man. You've made $3 million in this league. Like what? And you could play another year at $1 million, and then we decide, but you've already suffered a bunch of injuries, so maybe they will try to say, hey, man, you can have Baker Mayfield's deal. 3 years, $100 million. But the reporting is he wants Trevor's deal and then some. 5-275. And by the way, he has a better resume than Trevor. I understand that. But he looks at what Tua got, what Trevor got, what Dak got, and said, I'm more accomplished than certainly Tua and Trevor. It's an argument with Dak. And so it is a very interesting spot that becomes more interesting if after one of the worst games of his career this past Thursday, he has another bad one against a kind of floundering Dolphins team. Jags-Raiders is interesting only in this regard. The Raiders desperately need to lose it. Now, you can say the Jags need to lose it too, but the Jags' draft position is not the same level of importance for teams that aren't drafting a quarterback. Yeah, Jacksonville would love to be able to take Travis Hunter or whoever, the top non-QB on their board is. The Raiders, though, right now are fighting with the Giants for the number 1 overall pick, but there are amazingly 7 teams right now, 7 with 2 or 3 wins. So the Raiders are 1 win away from all of it going from potentially the number 1 pick to potentially the 6th or 7th pick. So this is a must-lose for both teams. There's no way around it. But it's more of a must-lose, obviously, for the Raiders. Pardon me. Bucks, Cowboys. Cowboys getting 3.5. The Bucks have to keep winning. Baker's top 6 in every passing category. I like they're not one of my picks, but I like the Bucks in this spot. And then another massive line. Green Bay laying 14.5 at home against the Saints. With the Saints quarterback situation in total disarray, obviously Green Bay should take care of business. Okay, that leaves us with 5 games. Steelers-Ravens is a game. Rams-Jets is a game. Pats-Bills is a game. Panthers... Who are the Panthers playing?
The Cardinals.
Oh, Cardinals is a game, pardon me. And Washington-Philly is a game. We'll do those 5 picks plus Damonza's teaser next. Quick break, right back. What's right? All right, welcome back in. What's right with Nick Wright? Last week, 4th straight winning week, Damonza. 3-2 last week. So that means we are 14-6 in the last 4 weeks of picks, which puts us 6 games above 500 on the year. 40, 34-1. Last week we had the Rams +3 at the Niners. They went outright. The Jets -3 at Jacksonville. That one was in question for a large portion of the game, but we got the win. Bucks +3 at the Chargers. That one was never in question. And then 2 ones that we were on the wrong side of. Carolina laying 2.5 against Dallas. Dallas played one of the best games it's played all year. And Detroit laying 2.5 against Buffalo. Detroit tried to get back in this game, but obviously could never stop Josh Allen. So on the wrong side of that one. All right. First one this week, Damonza.
Yeah, you've got Pittsburgh +6.5 at Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I said this earlier in the year. Mike Tomlin getting more than a field goal in divisional games is an auto fire for me. Auto fire. Amazing fact. This is the first game ever Lamar has played at home against Pittsburgh with fans in the stands. He has missed the home game against the Steelers every year but the COVID year, which seems impossible, but it's true. Steelers are 8-0 against the spread in the history of their franchise when they're getting 4 or more against the Ravens. Obviously, Lamar has played his worst football against the Steelers. 0-5 against the spread, 1-4 straight up. And in this matchup, underdog is 16-2-1 against the spread over the last decade, covering by almost a touchdown each time. And as we've said, Tomlin is an underdog against a divisional opponent, 26-9-2. So it's just an auto fire. Pittsburgh. Lamar struggles against this team now. I don't love the Pittsburgh injuries, particularly George Pickens. We'll see about TJ Watt. That's not great. But the Steelers win the division by winning this weekend. The Ravens stay alive for the division by winning this weekend. I like Pittsburgh plus the points. I know you're a Lamar guy, Damonza, but I feel like you like my side of this one too.
Oh, yeah, flashing red lights when I saw this game. Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar can get it done. Interested to see how it is at home. But, yeah, I mean, the Steelers just beat them earlier this year. 6.5 point underdogs is kind of crazy. But, yeah.
I mean, yeah, this line should be 2.5, and it's 6.5. It is just, and if you want to say because of the Pickens injury and potential Watt injury, you want to say it's 3.5, fine. But this is disrespectful to Pittsburgh. And it's Vegas continuing to tell you they think Baltimore's awesome and Pittsburgh's not that good. And I disagree with that. All right, next game.
So next we've got the Rams at the Jets.
Yeah, Rams laying 3. Last week, for the first time all year, we bet the Jets. And I understand this is a West Coast team going east. However, the Rams have to have this win. The Rams, since their bye, Damonza, how about this for the Rams? They started 1-4. Since the bye, they are 7-2. The same record as the Vikings, and the only teams with a better record than the Rams over the last 10 weeks of football, Eagles, Lions, Chiefs, Bills. So they have been, for the last 2.5 months, one of the very best teams in the NFL. I don't trust the Jets' defense against Stafford and company. And the Jets just got their win. They're not going to finish the year on this horrific losing streak. The Rams have to have it. McVay, by the way, oddly, 7-0, going west to east as a favorite. And they've always been a really good covering team at the end of the year, 14-2 against the spread in December. I think the Rams could. They're one of the teams that could win the Super Bowl. The Jets are one of the 7 or 8 worst teams in football. I'll take the Rams -3. Next one.
You've got New England plus 14.5 at Buffalo.
Yeah, so this story went a little under the radar, which was after the game, Josh Allen got an X-ray, I think on his back, because of a fall he took. Now, he said he was fine and it was precautionary, so be it. Here's why I'm bringing that up. In a game they have no business losing, and Josh having such high usage the last couple weeks, they're just going to keep the ball as much as they can out of his hands. No design Josh Allen runs. Get the ball out quick. Run the football. Just get out of there with a win. That doesn't lend itself to a blowout. Drake May, on the other hand, has been trying to cover backdoor spreads all year. It's a divisional game. I'm getting more than 2 touchdowns. It is not that I think New England can win. It's that I just think Buffalo is going to have a methodical, boring game plan as they go Patriots, Jets, Patriots to end the year. Also, bonus take here, I think that they are going to see on Saturday the Chiefs beat the Texans, and the dreams of the 1 seed will basically be dead if that happens. If the Chiefs beat the Texans, then the Bills' path to the 1 seed would be they have to go undefeated and the Chiefs have to lose their final 2 games. And so I just don't think they're going to be, in laser show, blow the other team out mode. I'll take New England plus 14.5. All right, last 2.
You got Carolina plus 4.5 versus Arizona.
Yeah, so Arizona is in a weird spot where if you look, weird spot's the wrong word, but Arizona week 2 blew out the Rams when the Rams didn't have their guys. Since then, they have wins by, they beat the Niners by 1, they beat the Chargers by 2, they beat the Dolphins by 1, they blew out the Bears and the Jets, and they obviously blew out the Patriots this past week. But earlier in the year, their wins were close in the margins, late game. Either team could win. I didn't love, honestly, how they played even in that Patriot game. It's just the Patriots can't get out of their own damn way. And they end up, being up 30-10 late in that game, end up winning 30-17. I could see the Panthers winning this game. I thought the Panthers had been playing really well and then obviously laid an egg against Dallas. But the Panthers, I don't think are going to end their year on a 7-game losing streak. I think they're going to get a win. And even if they don't get a win, this feels like a field goal game. Yeah, a divisional game in Carolina, not a divisional game, pardon me. Arizona's in the West, Carolina's in the South. But in Carolina, getting 4.5 points feels like a 21-17, 24-21 type of game. This was, I will admit, the hardest one. I found 4 games I loved, and then 1 game I was like, well, we need 5. This was the 5th. So if you're not tailing all my picks, this would be the one to leave out. But I like Carolina getting 4.5 in this spot. And then the last one, a game, this was my 4th one, and a game I like a lot. Go ahead.
You've got Washington plus 3.5 versus Philly.
Yeah, you don't like this one, Damonza. I can tell from the tone of your voice.
Yeah, that's a pretty up in the air one for me. Philly's humming. They're looking very good. But yeah, I trust you there.
So listen, Philly is humming. Washington, after their tough 3-game losing streak, has gotten back on track to a degree. The Saints game they were in full control of kind of took their eye off the ball, so to speak, and all of a sudden they're trying to stop a 2-point conversion to avoid a horrific loss. They also need one more win to lock up their playoff spot. Now, and I think even one more win officially won't lock it up, but de facto it would lock it up. I don't think Washington's going to win this game, but I do think getting 3.5 points, I think they could win, and getting 3.5 points is too big of a spread when Washington is healthier than it was during its losing streak. Jaden, I think, the ribs finally aren't bothering him, and he's playing great. And when you look at Washington this year, their losses, take out week 1 to Tampa, they lose to the Ravens by a score, the Steelers by 1, the Eagles. That Eagles game the first time around was really weird because that game late in the third quarter was 10-3 Washington. And then there were some turnovers, some weird plays. Saquon scored 2 long touchdowns within 30 seconds of each other, and all of a sudden Philly's blowing them out. And so, I mean, by a win probability standpoint, Washington was the favorite in that game with 10 minutes left. And they end up getting, they're down 26-10, 5 game minutes left, or 5 game minutes later. I think this is 27-24 Philly and maybe 27-24 Washington. So I'll take the divisional dog getting at least 3.5. So the picks are as follows. Pittsburgh getting 6.5. The Rams laying 3. New England getting 14.5. Carolina getting 4.5. And Washington getting 3.5 in this game. Now to Damonza's teaser, which I tried to warn him off of last week. I gave it a D. It sadly didn't win, but not for the reason that I thought it wouldn't. I didn't love that you crossed the 0 with Cincinnati, that one was the best leg. You were nervous about those 24 points with the Giants, but luckily it was just enough. It was actually the Chiefs forcing 6 turnovers and blowing out the Browns, beating them by 14, that ruined you. What do you have this week?
This week is a 2-team 7.5 point teaser at -163, and the blaring red lights I was talking about earlier. Pittsburgh, I had to throw in there. We got them at +14 against Baltimore, and then I teased through the 0 again with Tampa Bay up to +4 against Dallas. I mean, hey, we obviously everything we talked about with the Steelers and the Ravens. Lamar needs to, not Lamar, but the Steelers, this is a big spot. They're not going to get blown out. 14 points. Come on now. And then
I'm fine with that one.
+4 against Cooper Rush. Come on now.
No, I'm fine with the Steelers leg.
They're not tanking.
Tampa, I think you're going to win this one. I'm going to be honest with you, but I don't like it. On general principle of teaser value, where you're laying 160, I just
Whenever
don't love it.
you have a hunch or like you just know something, you can't be like, oh, remember the rule. Like if you know it, you know it,
I feel like you're going away from what got you on your long winning streak. I'm rooting for you. I'm giving you a C-.
C- here.
I'm giving you a C- on this one. It is an upgrade from last week, and hopefully it wins. All right, what's the offer this week? I don't know if you have it in front of you.
Yeah, so we are headed to Atlanta. So the last 2 or 3 games of two or three of Penix's college football games, he led the team to a field goal drive in the first play. In the first drive. So we're gonna go off that same logic. So he's plus 400 to lead them to a field goal in the first
drive of the game.
Or since Younghoe Koo is out, you could take that they miss it at plus 1900.
Okay.
You like either of those?
No, I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't like either of those, and I'm going to. I've never done first drive result bet.
I have.
And I'm going to keep that streak going and decline the offer. I would take punt as the best option, but that's plus 115. I got to tell you, this feels like a crummy market. You touchdown, you got to say if it's passing or rushing. I don't think, guys, I'm just telling you right now, I don't think the sharp bettors of America are betting first touchdown or first drive results. And I'm going to go ahead and stay out of that one myself. Well, I just don't like it. I'm just not. I am just personally not going to have a part of that. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed the audio version of today's show. Next week's schedule, we'll call it in flux. Right now, the plan is to have Christmas week off for the pod, but since Damonza will be in New York, maybe we'll do something in person while he's here. I'm not sure, but right now, just be checking your feed, hit the bell so you know when we go live on YouTube. Like, rate, subscribe, review, do all that stuff. Happy holidays, everybody. See you guys on TV in a few hours. What's right? Hey, thanks for watching. If you're still here, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the bell so you can be notified when we have new episodes. After you've done that, one more favor, go to your favorite audio platform of choice and subscribe there as well. Don't forget, we're live every Tuesday and Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern-ish. 10:35, 10:40, it sometimes changes, but that's why you hit the bell. You hit the bell so you're notified. You subscribe so we can get to 200,000 followers. We're right around 150,000. We'd love to get to 200,000, get Damonza another plaque. So like, subscribe, rate, send a rating too. Do all that cool stuff. Thanks, guys.